everyone. Welcome, and thanks so much for being here today. My name is Hannah Ju. I'm the coordinator of Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Initiatives at Dance NYC. And welcome to the Immigrants Dance Arts Conference. As you can tell, we're in this beautiful, grand, vast space together here today. So as much as possible, feel free to sit towards the front and gather close to one another. Just wanted to say if there's anything that we can do to make your experience more comfortable today, you can connect with anyone on the Dance NYC staff or our volunteers. We are all wearing these I'm a New Yorker for Dance black t-shirts, so you can feel free to pull any one of us aside today if you need any assistance. We're gonna start in just a few moments, so please sit tight and we'll begin soon.
Beautiful. All right. Nice. Okay. We're grateful to have you with us today at the Immigrant Dance Arts Conference here at the Kupferberg Center for Arts at Queens College. I would like to begin by grounding today's conversations with a land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgements stem from the practices of the original indigenous, native, and First Nations inhabitants of Turtle Island, which today we know as North America, and aim to create greater awareness of the historical oppression and genocide, as well as the ongoing colonization of Native communities. Especially as we consider the role of artistry in immigrant rights, it is critical to recognize the legacy of migration and displacement in the land we occupy. We are currently on the lands of the Matinakok people, who belong to the Algonquin Nation. They inhabited lands from what is now Elmhurst all the way to Smithtown, which includes Flushing and its surrounding areas where we are gathered today. Upon the arrival of the Dutch and English settlers in the mid-1600s, European colonizers forcefully took control of the land and drove out Matinakok people through violent attacks, spread diseases, and one-sided treaties. We know that the Matinakok people still live in areas of Queens and Long Island, and their presence can be noticed if we pay attention. For example, right now we are on Kisena Boulevard. Kisena is a Matinakok word meaning cold place. Please join me now in a moment of silence to recognize and reflect on the centuries of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that have led to us being here together today. Thank you. As a proud Queens resident, I would also like to acknowledge that being in Queens today, we are in the borough where almost 50% of the population is foreign born, and close to 150 different languages are spoken. We're proud to be gathered in a place that reflects the diversity of immigrant communities in New York City, and grateful for our partners at Queens College and the Kupferberg Center for the Arts for making that possible. And now please join me in welcoming our generous host, the president of Queens College, Felix V. Matos Rodriguez.
Hello and good afternoon. Bienvenidos y bienvenidas. Welcome to Queens College and to the Kupferberg Center for the Arts. We are very happy to welcome all of you to this Dance Arts Conference hosted by Dance NYC. where you will hear about the role that dance artistry has played in fostering the inclusion, integration, and human rights of local immigrants. Here at Queens College, we have always embraced the mission of serving students from all backgrounds who pursue higher education with the strong desire to improve their lives and their community. It is a privilege for us to work with our diverse student body, which hails, I think you heard a little before, from over 150 countries. And what I like about that is in some places they give you that number and they have one from each country. We have many from each of the 150 countries. So we are truly, truly diverse. And we're also very proud here to welcome faculty and staff who bring international perspectives to the learning process. We are therefore proud to offer a convening space for Dance NYC to host the very important conversations that will occur today around the opportunities and the challenges that immigrant dance artists face on a daily basis. Every year, Colden Auditorium, which is next to us, and the Ghosting Theater open their doors to almost 300,000 people who come to see live performances, community events, and attend graduations and other school and family celebrations. That's in addition to the events that we host off-site all over the borough. Hailing from all over Queens, these communities are a faithful reflection of the diversity of our borough, our city, and our country. Together with them, we celebrate the musical and dance artistry from myriad world regions, from Colombia to Korea, from Russia to South Africa, from Bukharian Jewish music to New York hip hop, folkloric Mexican dance, flamenco, you name it. We are proud of the work that Queens College academic departments and research centers are doing to bring to light the enormous challenges that migrants face in our country, especially in these challenging times. The Queens College Department of Drama, Theater, and Dance, for example, dedicated last year's faculty concert to the richly diverse immigrant experience of the Queens College community, where nearly 50% of our students are foreign-born. Our Immigration Studies Working Group galvanizes the rich and diverse interest of faculty and students around immigration, encouraging the college community to engage in crisscrossing disciplinary research, to develop curricula, to do outreach to public officials, immigrant coalitions, and nonprofit groups to plan sustainable programs and activities around immigration. Our commencement speaker last year in our commencement in May of 2018 was a social justice organizer, immigration reform advocate, MacArthur Genius award-winning fellow, and a Queens College alumni, Cristina Jimenez Moreta, the founder of United We Dream organizer, All the Dreamers nationally. The Kupferberg Center is also proud to spearhead and administer the CUNY Dance Initiative. Many of you are familiar with that, a residency program that provides subsidized rehearsal and performance spaces to New York City-based dance companies. A hallmark of this program is that its artists reflect the demographics of New York City in terms of background and identity, and that it benefits dancers from a wide range of dance forms, which all but guarantees that the CUNY Dance Initiative remains diverse. All of this to say that here at Queens College, we are very aware of the importance of having discussions around immigration through different approaches and points of view. We want to be part of those discussions and help shape an environment where immigrants are valued for their hard work and their contributions to a more diverse and pluralistic society, where they are treated with dignity and respect, where their voices are heard and included, be it through dance, music, literature, visual arts, or the sciences. Indeed, whether we're talking about dance or music, or for that matter, at Queens College, because teaching is an art, artistry and diversity are intimately related and diversity can only be achieved through the interconnections and interactions among individuals and communities from different geographical places, cultural backgrounds, and styles of artistic expression. I want to give my thanks to Dance NYC, my bad, to the funders who made this conference possible, and to all the speakers, and to all of you, the attendees, the ones who are physically here and the ones who are joining us online, for contributing to this conversation and for allowing us to provide the space to have you. We're delighted to have you here. Y nuestra casa es su casa. I would like now to invite the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs Commissioner, our friend Bita Mostofi, to join us here on the stage. Commissioner Mostofi is a longtime immigrant rights advocate and human rights organizer. Since joining the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs in 2014, Commissioner Mostofi has advanced the rights and well-being of immigrant New Yorkers. After spearheading the ID NYC outreach campaign, she helped to design the Action NYC Legal Services Program and was promoted to Assistant Commissioner in January of 2016. Because of her ongoing great work, she was named Commissioner by Mayor Bill de Blasio in May of 2018. So please join me in welcoming one of our key allies, our Commissioner of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, Bita Mostofi.
Hello, everyone. What an exciting opportunity to be here with you this morning. For those who don't know about our office, the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, our work is really quite broad. And it's broad because we fundamentally live in a city of immigrants, and nearly 40% of our population is foreign-born. That's 3 million New Yorkers, and if you add in the children of immigrants like myself, that takes you to 60%. And our office is really designed to advance programs and policies on behalf of immigrant New Yorkers. And you know, that work in of itself is extremely exciting in the city. In this borough of Queens, you have one of the most diverse places on earth with over 200 languages spoken here alone. And when you think about how are you building a city and a society that's inclusive, that's welcoming, that speaks for everyone and considers everyone in the work that you do, it is really fundamental to how you operate and advance the growth and well-being of the city itself. And it's incredible to be able to do things like language access work for immigrant New Yorkers, like we have here today with interpretation support. Incredible to be able to do things like the ID NYC program, where you have an ID card that truly is representative and for all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status. When you have critical investments in things like immigration legal services, building to make sure that people have access to those resources in their communities through trusted providers and locations like schools and libraries. That is really central to the work that we do, and it's incredibly inspiring to be able to work with New Yorkers across the city to do that important work. In this moment in time in which we are in with a federal government that really has espoused opposite values, that has led the charge in policies that really contrast with and divide our country, and in many ways seeks to divide our city, it is that much more important that you have a diverse set of voices that are speaking out about who we are, what we value, what we care about, and ultimately why it's so important to be able to bring together all of our communities to ensure that we are all caring for each other, that we are all interested in the well-being of our neighbors, our friends, our family, our children's co-parents, and so forth. and that we put centrally in the work that we're doing, sending a very, very, very clear message, both throughout the city but across the country about what we stand for here in New York. And it's been incredibly inspiring to see New Yorkers from all walks of life really step in response to things like the family separation crisis, this horror of thinking of how unimaginable it could be to literally take a 9-month-old, 2-year-old, 5-year-old and separate them from their parent or loved one as they're coming in to seek refuge in our country. And New Yorkers responded in waves, wanting to support the kids, wanting to give back, wanting to care for kids who were brought right here to our city, wanting to make sure that this policy ended and did not continue. In response to things like the travel ban, where you literally had the federal government say people from certain countries, regardless of who they are or what their backgrounds are, or what their connections are to the United States, including people like my grandmother, are not permitted to come to the United States simply because of where they were born. You had waves and droves of New Yorkers rise up, make their voices heard, go to airports, call their Congress members, and really, really say, this is not who we are. This is not who we want to be. This is not what makes us stronger or safer or better. And this is fundamentally not the symbol of who we are as a city with the Statue of Liberty right at our port. And so it's been really a bittersweet time in wanting to ensure that we are being responsive to these policies, that we are combating the fear and the continued hatred that's being espoused at the federal level to our communities, doing everything that we can from increased Know Your Rights awareness work to joining litigations and making it very clear that the city will not be a part or an arm of immigration enforcement, to really the, as I said, incredible formation of New Yorkers stepping up and rising up to say, we will fight this together. We will care for our communities together. And a critical part of doing that work, I'm somebody who comes from a background of really engaging with the arts community, really believing that fundamentally what drives and inspires people is storytelling and the ability to inspire. And so much of the conversation around immigration and immigrants is a false narrative, is one that is not truth-telling, is one that is a storytelling that's completely different than the real experiences of immigrant communities and native-born communities who live in our countries. And I think it's that much more critical that at this moment in time, artists seize the opportunity to reshape those stories, to tell the truth, to give experiences, to be able to say in ways that are inspiring, in ways that are truthful, in ways that are honest and deep, what it truly means to be a nation of immigrants, that this is indeed our history, that these are our shared experiences, and this is why we care about it, and this is why we value it, and this is why we will fight for it. So I am really excited that as an art community, you have all come together and have interest in asking these questions and supporting one another and in ensuring that we are saying very clearly and very boldly that we want to represent the best of who we are, and we will continue to fight for our values, and that includes being the ultimate city of immigrants here in New York and a country of immigrants more broadly. So thank you for everything that you're doing, and I can't wait to hear what comes of these conversations and ways that my office can continue to work with all of you. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this huge house. We got a big house because we needed a space to fit all of the spirits of the wonderful people here. But we also have a wonderful online audience, so we welcome them. Thank you to both the president and to the commissioner for your leadership in helping make today's conference possible. We'd also like to thank some of the pioneer funders that helped to make this possible. Stavros Narcos Foundation, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, and the Mertz Gilmore Foundation for their support of this initiative of the conference and for really spearheading this vision with us. Today's conference builds on Dance NYC's research report, New York City's Foreign-Born Dance Workforce Demographics, which you will find a copy at registration, and it's a part of this Immigrants Dance Arts Initiative. The initiative aims to deliver research, resources, and convening focus on the nexus of immigration and dance. As a part of this work, we are pleased to announce a new launched Immigrants Dance Arts Dance Maker Directory, which features the profiles of dance workers making and performing dance by and with immigrant artists in the metropolitan New York City area. If you are an immigrant dance artist, we encourage you to go on our website and fill out a profile. It is absolutely free, and it becomes a wonderful resource for people looking to work directly with you and in this field. With resources like the directory, the Immigrant Dance Arts Initiative aims to extend the role of dance artistry in fostering the inclusion, integration, and human rights of more than 3 million immigrant New Yorkers in the metropolitan area, while shaping urgent public discussions about changing demographics in immigrant affairs. As artists and cultural workers, we are uniquely positioned to shape culture and to build communities that reflect the depth of value and power of our experiences. As my dear friend and immigrant rights activist and artist Fabiana Rodriguez from Culture Strike says, culture moves faster than politics, and even faster than the laws and their enforcement that shape our day-to-day lives. And so what is clear is that in a political climate that dehumanizes and threatens the welfare of more than 3 million New Yorkers here, and more than 42 million foreign-born people in the United States, the cultural and artistic community must rise as activists for the human rights of immigrant people, because immigrant rights are human rights. As such, your presence and voice in today's conversations is more timely and urgent than ever. The goal for today is for you all, as immigrants, artists, and supporters of immigrant artists, to share how you think the field can take collective action to create a justice and equity for immigrant New Yorkers. To facilitate this, we're going to have a keynote that will happen today at this moment, and following at the closing of the day, another keynote that will focus on some of the different issues around advancing immigrant rights. The breakout sessions that happen in between throughout the day will all begin with a short panel discussion that will present food for thought. The panelists are not the authoritative voice. They are folks that have been working in the field and have shared experiences that will be in many ways a trigger for your conversations with one another. But really the meat of the conversation is you all, is what do you think? What have your experiences been? And how can we work together to articulate solutions for how to move forward? To create a safe space and a welcoming space for our attendees, Dance NYC and Queens College are prepared to follow the leadership of the immigrant rights movements and their leaders, which rejects the criminalization of immigrants and calls for the protections of their rights and due process. So our staff, as a result of that, has received a training on sanctuary spaces and has a plan in place in the unlikely scenario that ICE may arrive at the premises today. We thank President Matos and the entire team of the Kupferberg Center, all of the different folks that you see throughout the day that have really leaned into supporting this work that we are doing. With that, I am pleased to introduce the keynote speakers for the day, who will consider and respond to the following question. What is the role of dance makers and artistry in the movement for immigrant rights? Please join me in welcoming Dr. Derrick León Washington, dance anthropologist, dance activist, and independent curator, who will moderate today's discussion. Pascal Rioult, artistic director and choreographer of Rioult Dance. Potri Ranka Queano, founder, artistic director, and tradition bearer of Kingding Sindaw. We also have our lovely ASL interpreter, Erica, who will be joining them.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So sometimes it's always a little bit hard to say, how do we start a conversation or one of these conferences? So I'm glad that we already started with giving respect to the indigenous people that were here before us, that are still here today. Also understanding just the different immigrant/migrant stories. I say migrant because we do include Puerto Rico, which are migrants also. But also even, since we are in New York City, the descendants of Africans who have a different story that's not necessarily immigration or migration, how we define it. So we thought that we would have a conversation, but also throw some questions back to our audience here, but also our virtual audience from around the world. So we're gonna go through those questions, and definitely, if I speak too fast, then definitely slow me down, because sometimes when we have other languages, and sometimes I speak so fast, then people are quiet. But I think for our talk right now is to take space, hold space, and give space. So for our first question, so we don't waste any time, as Alejandra already said, for our two speakers today, Pascal and Potri, how do you define immigrant? How do you define immigrant? Who would like to start?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Magandang hapon. That's a survey if there's Filipino in the audience. Buenas tardes. And Assalamu alaikum. My name is Potri Ranka Queano Nor. I am from the Philippines, but Filipinos themselves said, your name doesn't sound Filipino. It's because my name doesn't sound Spanish. So obviously I'm coming from the island in the Philippines that was not colonized by the Spaniards. Pero habla español también. Immigrant. I came here to US as an immigrant nurse, registered nurse. You know, Filipinos as the largest export of nurses in the whole world. So you cannot find a hospital without a nurse. So I came here because of economic demand and necessity of my people back home. Otherwise, I could have stayed home. So at the same time, I grew up in a community as a Maranao from the 15th Pagawidan Pat Pangampung Coronao. Immigrant words, that's the area of Lanao that was assigned by the traditional leaders to become chanters. Chanting meaning to say, if there's something going on in the community, there's one unor, or the chanter, who has to memorize that event. And also, as part of that lineage, you have to memorize the epic. So it's all oral tradition. So consciously, I grew up in that way of life. Now, when I came to New York as a registered nurse, I was conscious that I'm bringing my culture with me, because that's the only wealth I have. I don't have dollars when I came in. No? So emigration for me, some said go and find the land of honey and milk. For me, I kind of forced. For me, immigration is displacement. I'm displaced from a beautiful paradise called home. So what I did is, I cannot be crying like this. So I have to bring that home with me, and I brought it home here in USA. So for me, immigration is bringing your home as much as you could, so you will be part of the community where you are, yet you carry that identity, survive and grow and flourish.
Pascal, yes.
So experiences are here very, very, very extremely different, which I knew that from our conversation, a prior conversation, that I thought actually would make this very, very interesting discussion. Potri says, talked about displacement, which I totally get and understand. I would say placement in my case. I'll go to a place because that's where I want to be. And not caring a minute about what I'm leaving behind. When I'm leaving behind, my culture is still with me. It's present in my life. It's present in my work. But the following the dream of being a dancer took me here to New York. That was the only thought in my mind, is to go where I was going to fulfill my dream of becoming a dancer. The best place in the world, that was New York. So it's a very different experience, I think, which is very interesting. You said, if I had the choice, I think you said I would stay at home.
Yes.
I'm going to say exactly the opposite. I had the choice, and I decided to go and not even look back a second because of that. So it's two very different experiences, which I think are probably true to all immigration. This idea of either immigrating because for political, economical reason, persecution, and all that, which is very obviously present today, and that is something that everybody has to be speaking of and about. Or immigration as, coming to America. That's a big, it could be anywhere to follow a dream, which has very little to do with displacement in a sense, there's a little sense, and I will get to that probably later. There's definitely a little sense of displacement in a sense of losing or being away from your natural, habitat or culture. But as you say very rightly, wherever you are, you carry it with you. So for me, so for me, immigration is more. The obvious definition would be, being born in another country and moving to and living in a different country. But I think it goes way beyond that when we talk about immigration. And to me, it's more about circumstances that it is about just living in a different country. What brought a person to move,
And I think that's important, that some of these times these conversations can get a little messy. And before, backstage, I was talking to Pascal and Potri, and I asked them if I could push them a little further so we could have just a deeper conversation. So Pascal, would you consider yourself a immigrant? And also to the audiences and virtual audiences, just Pascal does modern dance, American modern dance, and Potri does the different dances of the Philippines and southern Philippines. So would you consider yourself an immigrant?
It's such a tough question. Yes, I am. There's no doubt about it. But because there was a choice there again, to say my country. But I'll say, I'm a white, Caucasian male coming from Western European country to America. The change, the shock value is not very great. And the integration that's another part maybe of the conversation here. I was very conscious for some reason, I don't know, right off the bat, that I wanted to integrate as quickly and as much as I could if I was going to stay here, to the American culture and all what that represented, including the language, try to lose the accent as fast as I could. And I don't know exactly why, but that was important to me to, as much as I would keep my culture, because I don't think you can ever, let go of that or lose it. And also because it would be and become, obviously, whether I wanted it or not, an important part in my work. I wanted also to, if the decision was to stay here, to integrate as much as I could. That's something I also believe in. That's probably a good subject of discussion with other, different type of immigrant, whether, you do try to integrate as much as you can to the new society, or if you, stay and feel as much as a foreigner in a sense, you know. So I didn't have that experience. I felt very, I mean, I wanted to, and I felt the integration right away. But as I said, it's a little easier, probably in my case, coming from where I come, and the culture not be very different. You know, modern dance was very different in America than it was in France, so, and that's the reason, basically, I came to this country, but it's not that far, you know.
So I think to our audiences as well is who has the privilege to integrate into society with these different types of experiences and the reasons for immigrations, and listening to the different stories, because why a person comes and how we use the word immigrant as Potri use it in a way that's a little bit defiant, and then with Pascal, you use it in a way as you came here to make art and to make a statement as well, and those are both valid, I would say.
Yeah, I would say actually to push that a little further, I came to belong to a culture and that of dance, which I didn't have in my country. I mean, if I had it there, maybe I would not have come, to this country. But I came to integrate and belong to a community that I wanted to, be part of.
Well, for me, you see, when I was growing up, in our school, there are signs, speak English only. So, I grew up with poetry, legends, epics, and myths. And then I didn't have television when I was growing up because I grew up in the village, in the mountain. It's a sultanate, but that's the way our sultanate was. We're able to preserve it. So, and our, when there's a storm, during that time there's a rainforest in Mindanao, Philippines. Now it's a different story, but when we see a bamboo, there's a bamboo forest. When it have a typhoon, we're waiting for the typhoon to blow. The kids will wait for the bamboo to fall and run and hold tight at the ends of the bamboo, so wait for another wind to blow again. So that's our Disneyland, see? You see, that's a fairy tale, and there's so much fairy tale that is not too long ago that we're losing. So I see that in front of my eyes, and I have seen how my people suffered, and how our art becomes so. You see, my community has a chant in every what we call this? Has a chant, has a ritual in every cycle of life. By the way, I just want you to give acknowledgement that after I'll tell you this one. For me, as an American, well, my passport is American. I went home to the Philippines. I have somebody asking me, "Where did you come from? Home? Where are you going? Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going home." So I didn't catch that, like from home to home. So for me, I will say that when I came here, I brought my musical instrument and my landap, which is the symbol. This is a handwoven garb of my tribe. It's a malong. I'll show you how it looks later. So with this kind of struggle that I have to tweak my accent, because when I was speaking, they said, like, speak English. I'm speaking English. What do you say? I'm speaking English. So I have to study accent. Then I discovered that my accent was actually, I can sell my accent to movies. So I discovered. So I'm trying to turn positive all those, they said, things that I have to erase so I can blend in. So I decided that I will not blend in. I decided that I will not be assimilated. I decided that America will assimilate me as a culture, that I will become part of America as me, as a Maranao, and the rest of the indigenous people in the world, and particularly the indigenous people that are in my embrace. So I'm telling every audience that today, New York is not just 5 boroughs. They said, why? Because I added my island, Mindanao, or added Philippines as the 6th borough. So, and then so that kind of consciousness, because there's a lot of Filipinos here, and the tendency is forgetting the language because we need to assimilate. But you're losing your identity, and that is where depression comes in. Your diabetes, your cortisol will go up high, you're gonna get sick, and you'll become a pharmacy, and then you're gonna die. As a healer, as you said, as a healthcare worker, I'm conscious of, I went into study on studying the cardiovascular disease of Filipino immigrants. Because if you look into literatures, that is not what is present. I went to this because I'm trying to connect my healing, the healing that I've learned as an indigenous woman, as an indigenous child. And I was told during the time that no, that healing is called quack medicine. The truth is our herbs and all our healing rituals are actually being appropriated and being commodified somewhere else here.
So Potri,
So
so I have a question. So you're talking about healing, and for losing, what I heard you say is losing indigenous arts. So what are some of the resources, and this is for both of you, that we would need specifically in New York City? Maybe these are spaces or financial resources where people can make the different types of regalia, clothing, but also we're artists too, so where are the spaces where we can dance, especially dancers need a safe place to dance for their bodies, since that's our paintbrushes. What about the people who create different dance where we need lights and different? So are there any types of resources that immigrant artists need that might be different than other artists in New York City?
Immigrant artists, like I can be my own solo artist. I can be a Broadway actress. So it's only Potri. I can be a painter, a poet, and I can be alone. But look, that will not give justice to the ancestral heritage, ancestral art that I am carrying. So one of the resources is connect yourself back home. Continue the cycle of that culture and tradition, because I cannot really import that here. But still the consciousness will continue to follow, and the people, the consciousness of what is going on back home, like continue the weaving, continue the music. And just want to tell you, as one of my resources, we have the National Commission for Cultural Arts from the Philippines, who brought our indigenous people here. I just wanted to stand up to get acknowledged. They are here since November 4 up to November 10. If you want to follow us, we have two more events happening in Columbia University tomorrow and La Mama on Sunday. This is a whirlwind event, but I'm so happy that they're here. So just to demonstrate that the continuous resources, so that international funding that we can bring master artists to bring into the consciousness of the Filipinos here and the rest of the Americans, that this is a living tradition. This is not a museum piece where you go to Museum Natural History and say, oh, this is what the Tiboli people look like, or the Marno people look like. No, we are alive. We are practicing this culture and tradition. So we need to bring this into the consciousness. And the art, it carries actually a solidarity call, because this culture and tradition in the Philippines are threatened by the continuous encroachment of multinational companies. We're losing our land, they're gonna lose our culture. The indigenous people are the guardian of the earth. If we lose our land, we lose our culture, we humanities will be all zombies.
So I see what you're saying is taking space also. So when you're at this platform, since a lot of times immigrant artists don't have resources, so we have an audience here and virtually, so just saying what you need to be said to get resources. But Pascal, you have you just opened a dance space in Queens, so your resources are a little bit different. So are the needs of that you might need or other immigrants different, the same? Tell us about that.
Yeah, different, certainly. I mean, I want to start, I'll try to answer your question. But by saying that, even though I told kind of my story, which is very different from this one, being an artist is being, a person of the world, of the universe, and I think what Potri just mentioned is, essential, and I think immigration in general, I mean, of course, the arts, but in life in general, only enriched a country, and I think this is something that today we need to seriously say and consider. I mean, it only enrich our lives, and our humanities, especially to have a diverse, diaspora of people to live with and to exchange with. And I think I agree with you totally, even if it's not totally my experience in the same sense that, and in my work as a choreographer, I certainly am very sensitive to that yes, culture has to survive or else, and or else there will be nothing left, and you're absolutely right about that. I mean, this is, if we lose that ability to keep history through, and culture alive, traditions and culture alive through the arts, we're in big trouble as a society and as human beings, basically. So that, I think that's a very strong, and very important statement wherever you come from. To answer your question, yes, I mean, it's different. Now I'm kind of going on the other side, in a sense, by opening so we're opening a new dance center 2 weeks ago, actually, in Astoria, Queens, and as was mentioned early, and Astoria is the most diverse place maybe on the earth. So we're opening our doors as well to that. And to me, it's it's something that I'm very, very much looking forward to have this exchange and to have the ability to have people walking, coming, and working, offering a place for people to work, artists to work in a place that will be of many diverse, culture that will enrich my life and the life of the dance community and the artistic community, and in general, the life of people in that community.
Congratulations for that new space. What's out? If Mayor de Blasio will not fulfill his promise to me, then we'll be occupying your space once in a while.
Okay, good.
So,
You're
yeah.
welcome as well as everybody else.
The thing is that, you see, we are resident of two big theaters. One is La Mama. Of course, La Mama gave us, embrace us since 2000 and give us space for rehearsal, but La Mama is the world, so everybody's fighting over the slot for that rehearsal. And we were also adopted, we are part of Lotus Music and Arts since 1992, since our founding actually, at Kamala Cesar. And then they had a space for a while, and they lost it since, when? 4 years ago. And then that was not recovered. So, and then also we were Puffin Room. That is where we rehearse. All these spaces that recognize our need. So no more, Lotus has to look around also for space. There was one town hall last year that I really asked Mayor de Blasio for a space in Jackson Heights for a cultural center, not just for Kinding Sindaw, not just for Filipino, but for the rest of the world who are beautifully alive there, beautiful. You will see in the Diversity Plaza, all of the sudden there's a pop-up performance. So, and all the stores. I think we have to advocate for a space, particular in that area, for indigenous artists like us, but traditional indigenous and traditional artists, because you have the Bengali whose children is growing up and they have to continue their culture. You have the Sikh, you have the Hindu, you have the Nepal, and all these other Asian group. Isn't that a beautiful world if we get a cultural center in that area? But it's all restaurants going on there. So I think, and then I went to what's his name? Councilman John. I went to him and asked possibilities. So they said there's no area in that area. So I think this conference really have to push, especially in a particular population like that, there should be an existing cultural center, because that's the only way to maintain the, culture is very important. Without that, then all the bad things can come in. you know, you feel like you're ignored. I mean, it's okay for me, I'm first generation. But the generations after me, if there's no space to continue this consciousness, this is where you will be able to relate your dance to, oh, why the Indian dance has this movement? Oh, why the Thailand people dances have this moment? You Filipinos, why you have this dance too? So that is where the conversation come in, that once upon a time, we were part of the Srivijaya Empire of India. And the story of Rama and Sita went through this cross country and carry all these movements and all these nuances that actually would relate us to each other. Why Malaysia and Indonesia has the same movement or the way they dress with the Filipinos, because we're part of the Nusantara. Is that present with the colonial education somewhere in this part of the world? Not much. But through dance, perhaps, we can bring back that history that is very much alive in our culture, because you will see the influences of the way we dress, the way we eat, plus our movements, our dance is more than verbal language. It would tell you that actually this story is your story. Then we are really, let's retrace to the healing part of that. You continue.
Well, I mean,
you will let me speak at 7 days and 7 nights.
No, it's okay. But I'm saying actually, no, this is absolutely wonderful and true, and yes, and I said, like everybody, I'm sure says it, that's the beauty of dance. That there is no need of words, and that it expresses through the body, and certainly. I was going to say, Derrick, you're the anthropologist, so you certainly are aware of what Potri is talking about, and the richness of those culture through the arts, through the rituals, which obviously we've taken a lot of our cues for in modern dance, certainly. And more so than in the ballet world, but a lot of that comes from all these cultures, was taken, and there's a great respect, as far as I'm concerned, to those culture, and to wanting them to be alive, as you mentioned. And certainly what we need is a desire from the politicians and the people who have the money, the foundations, to create places where people can keep that history, that culture alive, and those are the presenters in theaters like here, to open their doors to, world, like we have world music, we should have, world dance festivals everywhere, and to have places for those people to be able to have a place to create work and to pass it on to the next generation and to share it with us as an audience, which, is important.
Also in your dance space, but you do open it to other dance groups as well. So you do teach modern and ballet at your dance studio, but there's also other groups that rent it out. And you also still use it for people with mixed abilities as well. So I do commend you for that, since it's not hard for any dance or choreographer to get a space in New York City, but you're using it not just for your company, but other groups can use that as well.
Yeah.
So
No,
that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, it was important to have
Can I ask?
to have a home, for us, obviously, but it's way beyond that. That's what I said. I mean, I made a step that is way different from just having my own space, which I could have, find a studio somewhere probably and keep it to that and be happy. But instead of that, no, we created a much bigger place because, as you mentioned, we're losing them. I mean, it's not just for indigenous people. It's for pretty much everybody in New York City. we're losing the dance studios, we're losing the places to, to work. I mean, it's been more and more difficult for me through the years to find enough hours to work, and it's getting worse and worse. So there is definitely a lack of space, which we've been talking here at different symposium before. So the idea that to try to put myself in that position to open a center where there will be not only spaces for people to rehearse, but also a black box, equipped theater for people to, with a reasonable price, be able to show their work, is something that was very important for me for the next step, for the legacy of both me, my work, but dance in general.
So it seems that you're on one spectrum, and Potri, as I talked about, giving space, taking space, and holding space, you're on the spectrum where you don't have time just to say, please give us space, but as you were talking to different officials and Mayor de Blasio is kind of demanding because we don't have time to waste. So it seems like there's an urgency.
It's very, very urgent. You see, it's just a hairline. One more cross and we're gone as humans if you're not conscious of why we have to hold our culture. You see, don't tell my hospital. I have to smuggle my dancers to dance in a space in my hospital. I used to be a nurse educator somewhere, and I will just say, guys, everyone is gone, so pass by the back door. And be careful bringing the bamboos, okay, that nobody will see you. But I know there's camera at the back. But the guards knows that I'm crazy. They know that I'm doing crazy things that actually I bring to the hospital during Asia Pacific Heritage Month. I always volunteer. I'm gonna bring my dance troupe here, so they will be lenient enough to see if I'm bringing strange things in my office. But anyway, that is the pain. I mean, it's so painful because, you see, I'm an immigrant who lived and survived and be a nurse because I have to feed people back home. The reason why I'm here because I have to make people go to school and continue the culture and tradition. At the same time, the obligation of continuing the culture and tradition here. You see, when I came here, I was so afraid that my children will forget the culture and tradition I came from. So that's why I started Kinding Sindaw. Kinding Sindaw means, Kinding means movement. Sindaw is where to light, to shed light to the unknown stories or unwritten stories of the people whose tradition are still in the oral form. And at least to the social media, we're coming up into the surface. Otherwise, there is so much bias towards that culture because of the colonial mentality that has been implanted by colonizers somewhere else. So through the process of the dance, we're able to illuminate, to give light to our real story so that that bias will be erased, that so we, mankind, can grow loving each other through art. And I think for the 26 years that I have asserted painfully the process, we're able to shed light. And in fact, partnering with the Philippine government itself, like the presence of the National Commission for Culture and Arts from the Philippines. And then scrabbling hard, writing grants for $3,000, $4,000, and then 3 nights of no sleep just to make report for the $4,000, you know? So can we get something like a building? How did you get your money?
Same thing.
That is a good question.
Lots of sleepless night. No, I mean, I don't even have all the money yet. But I'm building it. I'm still going to build it so that they can come. I mean, it's cliche, but this is really what it is. I mean, it is very urgent. I mean, we talked about this in this organization. Dance NYC last year already. I mean, it is very critical. I mean, people. I'm in a certain place, in the dance world, but I mean, the people who are starting, who are trying to work, to do their work, to create, to show their work, to exchange. There's a terrible lack of space and resources to do it. Absolutely, and that is very sad. It's very sad, and certainly we need to really try to speak to both the government, local governments, and funders to try. There are steps being done, but certainly not enough. And I agree with Potri. Certainly, like in times, like now, where the value that we talk about is about how much money you make or how famous you are, is really a problem if the arts are not here to fight this, to our ability as artists to show to the world things that they would not normally see, things that they would not normally know about, in a way through the arts that can be immediately, understandable or emotionally, understandable, that you can compart with those, feeling is essential, and I totally agree with you that if we lose that, there's not much left of our humanity, and I think everybody knows that. But if we don't make that statement very, very strongly, and I try to do that, as much as I can in my work, in terms of the compassion to others, and the need to as you said, to work together and to, love each other instead of the other way around.
So
it's very
one of my
important.
questions, I've seen both of you know how to network or connect with people with money, and you know how to really work crowds for many, many years. But what about the immigrant or person migrating who comes to New York City, who has limited language skills, who doesn't know just the landscape of the New York dance world? Both of you are pretty privileged to keep your arts going, but what about people in our audience, our virtual audience? How can we help them, since you are tradition bearers, both of you? What can we do about that?
Well, personally, how can I say? We need to really care. We need to care for other tradition bearers, no matter what culture they come from. Kinding Sindaw, we connected with the Mohawk people. Kamala Cesar her mother is Mohawk, so I told her, please connect us because we're indigenous. We would like to connect with the indigenous people who owns New York. So yearly we go to Strawberry Harvest Festival, dance, to help fundraise so that the Iroquois nation can buy back their land. How could that be painful, right? Buying back your land. And there was one time also that an Indonesian master artist from Indonesia, she stayed in our house. And I was encouraging her to create your own group. She joined my group, and it really was so great because my show was so beautiful, because I have an added master artists, though she's dancing my dance, and we have similar movements. So I told her, create your own dance troupe. So she created her own dance troupe, and she said, who will be my first member? I said, go take my daughters. So my daughters now dance not only my dances, and then they have a lot of question about the movement. So I said, go to Bharatanatyam. So they also dance Bharatanatyam. And in fact, that Indonesian dancer is here. She owns now Saong Budaya. Amalia, stand up. And she claims she had language barrier during that time, so she has to go to study English. And she's all out now. She's part of Lotus also as a resident. So that is just one of the examples. So there was one Peruvian musician who joined us. He was very good in percussion because Kanding Sindaw is percussion. So I told him, aren't you guys indigenous? what's your mother language? She said, my mom speaks Quechua and Aymara. I said, why don't you go ask your mom what's your stories, what's your culture and tradition, and create your own group. So he created his own group, and it's growing on right now. So it's so that's it. Like, if I see another indigenous person, why don't you develop your own group to continue the practice of your living tradition? Because we're not museum pieces. We have to continue. Yes, we're displaced, but New York is another land. In fact, it's another land of the native. We are seeds. We can grow anywhere. At the same time, we can communicate to the rest of our trees back home that continue. So the cycle of inspiring each other to grow. And as we grow, we communicate with other artists, and that is power. Because art, if there's art, we don't need war. That's already its own front. So it's a matter of how we artists unite and really create our own statement and be strong in that front and inspire each other and share each other's resources. It's beautiful that New York is able to create this kind of conversation, and that people like you who really work on this. So there's a lot of us here in this room. Perhaps if we put ourselves in a statement and ask the mayor and go forward to the governor, maybe we can get a space for us. Oh, God. Thank you. I didn't know you're stand person there.
And Pascal, since we're running out of time, yes.
Yes, I think Potri said very true and important things. What I'm going to offer here, which is definitely not a solution, is what she said. When she didn't have a space, she got her people to come through the back door of the hospital when everybody's left. And that's a true immigrant story of somebody who is not going to stop at anything to do it. And I think whatever is happening these days, it's not going to stop people from wanting to do art, from wanting to dance, from wanting to express themselves, and wanting to speak about themselves and their culture. So that, it's not a solution, but it's something that I keep seeing, that I don't think, we're going to stop that, which is good, but they certainly could be more of an effort. And a place like New York, as you said, which is, only richer and is New York because of that, because of the diversity, the incredible diversity, and is only richer because of those exchanges. I think, yes, maybe there could be more resources for people, especially people starting to be able to be helped in terms of finding their ways through, the space, the funding, the language barrier, the exchange with other people instead of staying in there. I think there some initiatives that could, that could be try to be done by, if we try ourselves to.
Well, I
to
think
ask for it,
definitely our time is running out, but I like how we have this, that maybe we didn't answer many questions, and sometimes the conversation was messy, but we're artists and creators and we produce art, and I think that's important for the conversations that are going to happen for the rest of the day also. But I also liked speaking with you both is that you're both defiant with resources or small resources. This wasn't a pity party, but showing the world that the art will endure and that we will endure also regardless of resources, but we will still take space and we will still demand the resources that we deserve as well. But again, we want to pass this on to our audience for the next workshops, but before that I want to thank our two speakers with applause.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you.